Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Autopsy with Maddee P. I'm your host, Maddee P. And last week, we talked about why we need to be good people. And I kind of lectured you, so I apologize for my aggressiveness. Somewhat so, I believe, during that episode. I was having a hard week, it was a tough week for Maddie, okay? But we're jumping back on that horse. And this week, I've been going through and I've been rewatching my podcast and kind of seeing where I'm at, where I'm lacking, where I'm doing well, where I need improvement. First of all, never wearing my hair down again. I'm sorry for anyone that has to watch me play with my hair for 45 minutes. Second, this week I changed my plan. I'm going to get into some of the nitty gritty, some of the things in sobriety that were really, really hard for me to overcome, that were really painful for me to see. And when I got sober, I was like searching for help and for somebody that understood where I was coming from or somebody that had any advice on it. So I want to make this a place that when you look up the Autopsy with Maddee P, you're able to get healed and it actually means something to you and you're able to move forward in your sobriety, because props to you, girl. Sobriety is so difficult. I'm so glad I'm reaching a state that this is my normal and that I would probably have a panic attack if I drank alcohol, honestly. So I'm very glad I'm in that place and I'm happy and healthy. So there's something called character defects, you guys. Character defects. If you're in the program, you're aware of character defects. If you're not, you might be aware of them anyway. We all essentially have these traits that are unbecoming. They are not conducive to ourselves or to the environment or to our relationships or anyone around us. Everyone has these. For a lot of addicts and alcoholics, we all have some pretty similar ones. We're all pretty selfish. Unfortunately, we've gone through some gluttony. We've gone through some anger. We've gone through some pain. We've isolated ourselves and we've made it hard for people to understand us, for people to love us, because we got tired of hurting people long before we put down the drink. Whether we recognize that or not, we were done. We were exhausted a long time before we stepped into recovery. And I feel like, at least for me and for a lot of sober people, it is really important to me now that people know how much I love them and that how it's a living amends. I walk around in apology and I have to act accordingly to that because it's really, really painful to look back at some of the shit I did in sobriety. Shame and guilt is really, really real. And in the program, we have steps, if you're not aware, of overcoming some of these obstacles that we face as addicts, because one of the hardest parts, one of the things I still face to this day is guilt, and all the things I've done, it still replays in my head, irregardless going through my steps, and kind of allegedly getting past that point. We live with that shit. And no one talks about it, but it is excruciating and it's really painful. And so I want to kind of make this aware also to people who don't have a program or who don't work a program, because a lot of those benefits come from the program. And I know I wouldn't have been able to progress forward where I was. It would have been really, really dark if I didn't have a lighter side and people to go to in my community. But we don't talk too much about the program here because we have anonymity. Sea anemone, Finding Nemo, where we don't talk about that shit. Sobriety is private. We keep it private for a reason. I love anonymity. So, the way that I talk about the program will be a little bit flow in and out with things. So that is why this week I have landed on anger. We are going to discuss anger because as sober people, as anyone, anger is the hardest emotion. And I know for myself, watching these podcasts, I think I'm doing a good job, but I want to be more open about the things that debilitate me. And I'll start by saying a quote. This week, it is from somebody I know who I'm not going to reveal based on anonymity. But this quote is, "Don't go up there alone." And it is referring to your mind. And I love that because a beautiful part of recovery or of any relationship, and I want you guys to take full capacity of your relationships. You are able to tell people, I have some thinking to do. I have some dark thoughts going on. I would like to get that out. And I don't want to go up there alone. And I think it's important that we utilize our relationships and we are honest and clean with the people that we love and say, I really want to discuss this. I'm in a lot of pain. Well, I have been living by that quote almost since I got sober, because I realize how utterly dangerous it is for me to explore myself in certain ways. And there's a healthy bound to that. Exploring yourselves is a beautiful, one of the most fun things, but it is very dangerous. It can be very dangerous, especially with an addict, alcoholic mind. I'm obsessive. I have an issue with obsession. I am obsessed. And growing out of that has just been spectacular. It has done bounds for myself, but it's hard. Sometimes I catch myself in a cycle and I have to remind myself I am not a cyclical person anymore. Is that the correct word? I'm not that person anymore. I don't have to get stuck in one thing, circling my brain like impending doom. So don't go up there alone is a great quote I wanted to start with. And yeah, we're talking about anger this week, and I want to show my weakest points. Honestly, just to show you that you're not alone. You're really not. And you're just brave enough to conquer it. You're brave enough to explore it, and you're brave enough to talk about it. We all deal with it, and it is a killer. Also, if you're not aware, you're not working a program, this is how we stay sober. This is how we do it. If you're not aware, is together. We do it through talking, we do it through communicating, and we do it through exploring the pits of our stomach that we don't want to talk about. That is how we stay sober. Because if we can get to the root of our actual problems and not just why we drank, we can get a lot further from alcohol, and we can remain a lot happier during that time. Because just because you're sober does not mean you're going to be happy, unfortunately. And I battle that all the time. I have to remind myself sometimes, wait, I need to choose the fun option. A life of sobriety does not mean a life of boredom. And I even get those mixed up sometimes. It's very easy to. And especially with the protection aspect, I still have such big guards up, and I'm glad I do, but I have such big lines up, and we're learning to trust ourselves. Sometimes it's hard to read that. It's hard to really listen and say, where are you? Can you go do that activity? Are you able to? And really taking that time to understand the line, because I don't want to live a life of sadness. I don't want to live a life unfulfilled. I want this sober life to mean everything to me, and I want to get everything, every ounce of smile and light that I can possibly get out of this earth experience before it's my time, because that's why I got sober, you guys. And I hope that's why you got sober. Obviously, we had our reasons, don't get me wrong, but I hope one of the reasons that you're getting sober is to experience peace and to just experience the beauty that is the world. And we talked about last episode, not blaming the world. And actually now we can see the literal beauty in everything. And that is such a gift, because that's who we are actually meant to be. That is what we are made for. And we're made to love each other. So, yes. And I have had an issue my whole life with why me? Why me? This is not fair. Why me? This didn't just come with sobriety. Because like I discussed, I was a freak way before I knew I was an alcoholic. I was a freak way before I knew I was a drug addict. I would always say, why me? Why am I built like this? Why does this brain function in this way and no one else's does? So it seems, right? And that question loomed over me. That question leaned over the end of my bed and stared at me and said, why you? Why you? And it is an insufferable question. That question fucking sucks. And let me tell you, why me is the most alienating question that we can possibly ask, because that puts us immediately in a place of we are unlike anybody else. And we don't give ourselves a second to comprehend that there are thousands and millions of people in the world who are very, very similar to us. Another thing, if you're not aware of it too, is we share a brain. Addicts and alcoholics, you're the same as me, whether you're 60, whether you're a baby. Well, you wouldn't be a baby. Milk drunk if you were 20 versus like 60, And that saved my life on multiple accounts. Honestly, it saved my sobriety. Sometimes when I say save my life, I kind of mean in terms save my sobriety, because I know I don't stand a chance if I slip. Honestly, I genuinely think that. It saved my life to know that there are people out there who are like me, and that there are people who suffer with these crippling mental ideologies that just ruin me at times, still to this day. And it brings me a lot of love knowing that my brain isn't actually unique in the insufferable part, you know? I'm unique in the beautiful ways, in the ways that are more human, but I'm not unique in my pain. And that is important for me to know. That is very important for me to know, because we are isolated. We are a lonely people. And it's important for me to know I am not alone in my pain. So if you're not aware, you're not alone in your pain either, girl. I'm going through that shit too. I know thousands of people who are not, I don't know them, but I know a lot of people who are going through that shit too. So why me? And first, I want to start with the point that I believe we are chosen. And I saw this girl, her name is Mommy Unami on TikTok, and she's like a life coach. She does a lot of stuff. And she was saying that she finds it so interesting when she comes across somebody who's been an alcoholic or been in active addiction, because she knows that they have this archaic, ancient pain in them, and that she feels these people haven't been here before, and that they have experienced a lot of life. And something about that clicked with me, because obviously I don't do too much daydreaming in the realm of what happens or what has happened or what happens next in terms of human life and the course of all that. I do looming with my higher power, but I try not to get stuck in, it's really fun, but the afterlife or next life. But anywho, I found that a very interesting way to state it. And we are chosen. I feel that. I really feel as though we are chosen people, and that this walk that we walk is the most painful, but the most beautiful human experience that you can have enveloped, because you get to see both sides to this, and you get to really build yourself. Whereas even there are people out there who are on a health journey, who are on a growth journey, who are experiencing getting better, but they haven't been brought to such lows that they're not going to gain as much as we do, as alcoholics and addicts do from the situation. And I didn't mean that to downplay anyone. It's just the truth of the matter. And the life you live is chosen. That's how I feel about it. Not everyone can do this shit. And I remember being in active use, being like, sometimes some ego deaths that I had, or like with stimulants, like that feeling that you deal with, that sheer anxiety and pain that you have from come downs or being high, I would think to myself, what the fuck? I don't think anyone could stand in my shoes. Like, this is really painful. Like, this is like an experience that like will rock my shit. And I would think that. And now I understand why I thought that, because it's kind of true. Because who the fuck lets theirself go to that place that they're about to jump there? I lived my life on the side of a cliff, looking up at the sky and down at hell at the same time, you know? Like, there's such a loomy, weird feeling that comes with being an addict, because part of you wants to die and part of you thinks you never will, ever. And I also remember parts of my journey where I would think, there's no way I'm gonna get as far gone as like an addict, right? Like, I'm not gonna lose who I am. Meanwhile, like I talked about, I'm having tics, I'm having physical effects. I thank my fucking God, honestly. I thank the stars, because the fact that I was able to stop before I had lasting effects, or I couldn't cognitively overcome some things, or I lost who I was in my brain, or like cognitively I was stuck. Because there are a lot of people who were smart people, you know, who get fucked and they end up on the other side, not them, and not able to add 2 and 2. And I know I wasn't on heroin or anything, obviously, but the possibility didn't stop there. Just because I ended on Coke and Adderall doesn't mean that I couldn't have pushed it to more. And that was a big realization I had, because I told myself, am I really scared to do meth? Not really. I'm admitting that on here. And I wouldn't have done it, but I know that I'm an addict, and my brain wants relief more than it wants peace. And that's my issue, is I want to be out of it. I want relief more than I want an actual resolution. I think like we might not seem equipped for sobriety, for this pain that we endure, but I think we are. I genuinely think like we are equipped. And there's like a quote, you know, like God wouldn't give his hardest battle to his weakest soldiers and stuff like that. Again, we don't bring religion into this, but I love that quote, because I kind of think that's true in a lot of ways. Like, do I think that we all have a plan? No, I don't think that. I think that life is action-based, very much so than we think. And I think that we wish upon a star, but we're not willing to work in the dust at the same time. And there's a mixture of the two that need to occur. I'm getting sidetracked. I think we're equipped for this, though. I really think that we have a certain set of skills and we have a certain mind that other people don't have. And we are able to bring so much more to the table than we understand. And so I think in a lot of ways it's changing the verbiage almost from like, why me? To like, why me? Why me? And I'm kind of getting to that place, like, why me? It feels like I'm a chosen one in terms of like helping others and of bringing light, like, even if that's only on a local scale, even that if that only means me and my house and my 5-mile radius, I'm cool with that. But I do feel chosen in that way. And I think a lot of sober people feel that way because it's one in however many people. I will look up the statistic, probably not, but one in however many people are an alcoholic or addict. That's chosen to me. And I am starting to change that verbiage, and I implore you, I use the same vocabulary all the time. I'm sorry. I implore you to kind of flip that why me on its head, and in some ways be like, why me? What do I gain from this? Because we don't get to go back. We don't get to relapse. We don't get to go back and be like, okay, I'm going to go back out. Doesn't work like that. We have to move forward. We don't get to just get the relief and fix the problem. And I think flipping that on its head is a huge bonus because it has me on my nights that I'm upset, I'm having a hard time getting through my sobriety, getting through my 24 hours. I look up at the stars and I'm just like, it used to be like, why me, bro? Like, I can't do this shit. Like, I literally can't take this. And now on those nights, on those hard times, I look at the sky and I say, what do I do? And like, why me? What are you trying to tell me? What am I meant to be? Like, where am I missing clues? Where am I missing what I'm supposed to be doing, And that causes me to be able to sleep. That allows me to sleep because I'm pondering and wishing for more rather than, it's a little bit like half glass full rather than half glass empty. And sobriety, we always have to look at it half glass full, even if it's quarter glass full, because it keeps us alive, right? And I know for me, definitely, if you haven't gotten to this place yet, my biggest gifts and my contributions that I can make to this world have all been revealed to me through sobriety, and not only through sobriety, through really hard times. That's when I've been able to see my gifts, my less obvious ones, the ones I didn't know were there. And so if that hasn't happened to you yet, I want you to know that they do come. I did ask for my gifts. I'm like, yo, show me, like... show me what I'm supposed to be. And I know this isn't a reoccurring topic with myself. That's just the anxiety of what I go through day to day. That's my my most insufferable state that I deal with now. So our talents and our gifts are revealed through hard times. And I want you to remember that. And I think with why me, I also love the diagnosis in this term. And what I mean by the diagnosis is that when we know we're diagnosed, we diagnose ourselves, we know we're alcoholic, we know we're addict. I love diagnosis. It gives us so much because it tells us, why me? You're an alcoholic. You're an addict. This is what your life is going to look like. This is what has happened to you up until here. And for me, at least, that helps me a lot with those times because it's just like, that's my brain, dude. And sometimes because of diagnosis, I'm able to give it up to, that's my brain. And I don't spend so much time fucked on it and stuck on it, trying to change who I am, trying to change the realization of what life is, trying to change what I used to be, my past. And it's not realistic. And it gives me space to be realistic and to say, I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a crazy person. Sometimes I say that outright just because I'm just like, I'm crazy. And it allows me to put my hands up and say, that's my brain. And that's me. And that's us working with ourselves. That's what that shows me, is those are the times where I'm working with myself. I don't get so frustrated that I'm like in a ditch. Instead, I'm like, fuck it. Dude, I'm about to go do some other shit. I'm about to reset because I cannot handle this. And somebody told me too one time, a really good thing to do during your day, if you're having a day like that, you're having a tough 24 hours, is resetting your day. So like I haven't utilized this too many times, but the few days where I've had that have just been like absolutely horrible and debilitating, and like I have to get through a second half of a day, or like it's been horrible and I haven't even gone to work yet or whatever it is, I'll have a cup of coffee and I'll meditate and I'll do things that are like morning-esque. Like maybe for lunch I'll have another breakfast to restart my day and to give me some space to like re-wake up and remember that I am just a crazy person. And it gives me so much, like, to remember, oh wait, you're just batshit. You're fine, queen. And I'm like, yes, I love being batshit. You know, fuck it. It's better than being boring. I'm okay with being batshit. At least I'm not boring. So the why me question, I just feel like almost killed me so many times. And it made me feel like an alien when I was young. And if you're an alcoholic, you're an addict, or you're somebody that just felt like a freak when you were little, we had a lot of those defects in place. We just hadn't hit the bottle yet. We just hadn't hit the Coke bag yet. You know, like we were crazy though. Like we were already that way. And the why me question was so much so about why am I the way I am? And that stems back to confidence and a lack of wanting to live, a lack of knowing if I wanted to or what was next for me. And the belief of why me is limiting. It's full of isolation and it's full of limitations. It caused me to isolate. Why me, my whole life caused me to isolate, but especially when I got sober, I really isolated at the beginning. Again, didn't go to treatment, so there's nothing wrong with how I handled it. There's nothing wrong with how you handle it. And if you isolated, it's because we're scared. The world is going to see us and call us on our shit. The world is going to see us for what we truly are now that we're naked and the drugs and alcohol are gone and we're stripped bare bone. We don't want the world to see that shit. Like we're freaks. That's how we believe we are. The opposite of isolation is connection. And we have to put aside our why me's and our freak flag for a moment to remember that other people can still see us. Just because they're not that way, they're still trippy because they're humans. I don't know how to describe that, but if you're an alcoholic or addict, you know what the fuck I meant in that moment. So leaving that there. And I will say too, the beginning of sobriety, I'm talking about anger as a whole and the way that it rests in my chest when we get to that point. But anger, temporary anger, like in the beginning of sobriety, it is common. You're going to have that. And I'm sorry. I was extremely angry. I had someone who told me that I was probably going to get really angry. He was like, "Are you an angry person?" I'm like, yeah. He's like, "Okay, you're about to be mad as shit, just so you're aware." And I'm like, perfect. Can't wait. I'm so good at being mad. And so I do want to say that's something you're gonna have to work through. It's a period of change and you're gonna be angry as fuck. Is it worth every ounce of anger that you receive? Yes, it is worth it. It is totally worth it. But I'm just saying, don't be so hard on yourself if you realize how angry you are getting stripped clean. First loud one. I almost want to edit that. I'm not going to. But you may be mad when you start getting sober, so don't be surprised. I was mad, angry. How dare the world do this to me? How dare the world even show me what alcohol is? How dare the world invent alcohol? Hello? And it's crazy to me because I think about it too. Like, it got stripped away from me so quickly. Like, sometimes I feel like I didn't get a chance to say goodbye before I could even say hello. And maybe that's my age. Like, us being young feels that way. It's like, I didn't even get to say bye sometimes when I see it. And it's just like weird to me, but it's like, I ruined it. And like, I did say goodbye. I did have a final night that we talked about. I had so many goodbyes. Just not realistic. It's me being obsessive. And I struggle with that a lot. So welcome to your first new emotions in sobriety: obsession and anger. You've had them all along, but now you know they exist and we talk about it now. And because it's a huge part of your day and it sucks, but welcome to your new emotions. You will get through them. We will talk about them and it will be okay. And you're in a period of change. And this world will never understand us. It won't. And we're not meant to ask it to. When I come on here and I talk about alcoholism, I talk about addiction, I talk about the shit I've been through, it's not to make the world aware of alcoholism and addiction. It's not to bring light. It's not to advocate. It's to talk directly to alcoholics, directly to addicts, directly to people in need. We don't change the world. We don't need the people. We are learning how we fit into life. We are not learning how life fits into us. And that's a really important reminder that the world is not going to understand us, but it is our duty to understand them. And in turn, that brings us comfort. And we're kind of experiencing a new unity while our freak flag is showing. And while we're learning authenticity, while we're learning to love being a freak and being proud of who we are and the fact that we have all these weird, fucked up things that happen in our brain, yet we're able to present to you as normal. We fight so hard that we're able to present to you and the community as strong and powerful and able to conquer a lot and able to uplift and care for others. And let me tell you, as sober people, we spin that shit. We spin it and we spin it well. And I'm very proud of us as a people for step by step kind of coming together and learning that it's okay that we're freaks. And it honestly, like, I know I tear up a lot, and I'm my mother's daughter. I don't apologize. I am one of those girls that just cries for no fucking reason, and it is what it is. But I know for me, the little girl in myself was so elated to hear that I am not a freak, or that I am, but it's cool, and that I get to explore it, and I get to be like happy in who I am, and that I have an answer now. I have a diagnosis and I understand how to work from it from here. And something about that for me as a sober person, knowing that I was like fucked in the head and knowing I was a freak for so long, it really helped the years of harm that I put myself through because of that, to know that like there are people like, holy shit, like what? Like, oh, I have a diagnosis and now there's people here to help me with this shit and I'm not alone and I'm not weird. Anyways, sorry for the emotions. This is just a big one for me because I'm a weirdo. And if you know me personally, or you knew me growing up, especially if you knew me in high school or anything, I'm dead ass a freak. Like, I'm a weirdo, and that's because I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. But the world is never going to understand you. And it's not fair to ask that of the world. And I want you to know that now, to not place your value in other people. Comparison is a thief of joy yet again. And we can't see the bigger picture, especially in early sobriety. It's really hard to see the bigger picture. We don't understand it's a gift yet, and we don't understand what we can do with what we're learning, and how much is really going to come of it. It's so hard to see the bigger picture, but you will get past it, and I want you to flip the why me on its head. God, shut up already. During, like, all I just said, there are periods where that being a freak, the isolation, the why me, was so bad that it caused every ounce of anger carrying over into my entire life. Like, that's how deep that anger rests from the why me question. That's why I went so in depth with it, is because it caused every ounce of turmoil that I was going through, honestly. And I just couldn't see it for what it was at the time. Thankfully I can now, but it does go that deep. So like, if you're like, that question isn't that deep to me, or like, I don't feel that much about it, you probably do, because it was alone a massive fucking hill. And not only did it cause the anger, but for extremely long periods of time, months on end, I felt that pain from that. And it does have enough power. I think I am trying to show you that there are parts of us that are so deep, that hold so much power, that even just flipping it on its head gives us a little bit of peace, and it gives us a little bit of breathing room to move forward to our next effect, because these are deep rooted in who we are. And sometimes, like, I didn't want to keep going. I didn't want to be thankful, and I let anger rule me because of why me. So we're gonna get more into the anger part of things now. Why me was big for me, obviously. Clearly, considering she just spent 29 minutes repeating herself and telling you that you're not a freak when you probably are. We need connection. And when you don't feel like everybody else, it's so trifling because you hide it. You aren't able to express it, especially at a young age. You just want to camouflage. You just want to be everyone else. And like, it's really hard as a child, I think, especially. And that's where a lot of us have that rooted shit. Like, we've been out of the know. We've never been normal, ever, at any point in our life. We were not normal. When anger becomes our driving factor in life, our driving factor in our sobriety, and everything, we lose. We lose across the board. And there are times where anger has been enough to keep me alive. And leading into anger instead of sadness is a common thing people use for different spaces you're in with grief or whatever. And that's real. So I am learning apparently there are parts of anger that are healthy, right? Obviously, if I'm getting attacked, I need to be angry. It's healthy that I'm angry at that moment. But it's so hard for me to understand the line with anger, and what is healthy and what isn't. So what you remember, I guess parts of anger are healthy, but I don't get that because we're in a new time now. I don't understand why our brains are still so archaic on matter of survival. I don't understand that. It's been so long since a woolly mammoth chased me, like, or a person. Like, I don't get it. So I'm like, are there parts of anger that are really that healthy unless I'm now facing a life-threatening situation or whatever? Can it be that healthy? And you know what it is? I don't think it's that anger is healthy. I think certain angers are healthy to let out. I feel like that's more so what it is. Again, I don't go to therapy. I'm not a doctor. I don't know much about that. That's just what I feel like for me, because I try to articulate where the fuck my anger is supposed to be healthy. I don't see it anywhere that it's healthy. Not once have I manifested in anger and it been appropriate. Honestly, like, even if I'm dealing with somebody who's like opposing me, if I were to snap or whatever, I walk away upset. I don't walk away better. I'm not gaining from that. Even if it was like the person was severely coming for me. I don't know. So apparently there are parts of anger that are healthy. And I think that's more so to let us understand that we're just going to have to live with it forever. I don't even know if that's necessarily the truth in some ways. Again, not educated, so I probably shouldn't say that. But that's how I view it. Because I'm like, girl, I don't see no plesiosaurus around here. I ain't running from shit. Like, I have a golden retriever on my couch right now. It's been a minute since a wolf's been in the backyard searching for my chickens, on my prairie. For me personally, the reason I'm talking about anger too is that is my darkest time. Not like when I'm sad, not when I'm lonely, not when I think about alcohol, not any of that time. The worst, the most isolating emotion that I have faced my entire life is anger, point blank, period. Not sadness, anger. It has ruled me. It has, again, been my driving it was my driving factor during my using, during my drinking. At the beginning of my sobriety, it was a driving factor. Not to say that I'm a cripplingly angry and complainative person, but it looms over me, and it was very common for me to wake up and not know where my emotions were for the day. So not knowing if it was going to annoy me that somebody was chewing at 8:30 in the morning, or annoy me that somebody said good morning to me. And I was not an angry drunk. I want to put that out there. I was not. I used for relief. Period. Of course, sometimes I get too fucked up and cry about something. But like, I used it to completely escape my life. So I did not get pissed off or have an angry side to me when I got drunk sometimes. If anything, it was like the opposite. I think like, I don't even want to talk too much about my using right now, honestly, because it's just like, too much of it is repetitive. And like, I think sometimes in recovery, when we talk about specifics and experience of our using and our drinking, for me, it's a little bit triggering. Like, sometimes if I hear someone recounting something so deeply and like, I know they're sober, but they're kind of being like a little bit fairy tale with it, in terms of like, as if we might get to experience it again, or it might come back. I get a little triggered. I don't like talking about it too much, just because it hurts, dude. And it's like, then I'm putting my mind in what it was thinking during an inebriated state, and I don't live in that state anymore, and it causes me great anxiety to do that. So I think some parts of it are funny, some recollections are not. The example I was going to use is like, Ellie looks so cute. The example, stop, she looks so cute. She just got shaved. She looks so damn cute. Was if I was super fucked up and like, I felt like somebody was laughing at me, and then all of a sudden I'm upset at that. That was an example I was going to use. Dumb, stupid. Moving on. Growing up, I had anger fits. So I would just explode. Very angry. Happy kid though, but just fits. Bouts of anger. What is the word? Tantrums. I was a tantrum haver, right? Big tantrum thrower over here. So as I got older and I got out of puberty, out of the cycles of being biologically what happens to us, physiologically, what happens to us through growing, my anger kind of left in terms of a day-to-day, and it came more in outbursts that were undetectable and sudden and somewhat unreadable. And those are the most isolating pits of my stomach. So I have only had one bout of a rage of fit, if you will, in sobriety. I will not talk about what it was, but I was so gut-wrenchingly embarrassed. No one was here. It was just me in this house. And I threw something. I got upset, slammed, like as if I was a toddler, like a tantrum. And I don't know if people experience rage or anger to this level, but I do. And I think a lot of alcoholics and a lot of addicts do. That's why I'm being so open about it, because it can kill us. First of all, anger can kill you. It can lead you to use and use and use. It really can. And so I had a rage fit, just like not just throwing something or getting frustrated, blind anger that, like I'm throwing this, like whatever. Got pissed, threw something. Not in a destructive way where I tore up my home or anything, but definitely not becoming of a 25-year-old adult. I was alone when this happened. Very upset. The rest of my day following, I had to work later that afternoon and I had stuff to do. And the rest of my day following, I walked around like this, like head down. I couldn't even look at people in the eyes. I couldn't even look at my sister when I picked her up for work or when I saw her at work. And no one saw this happen. No one knew what had happened. I haven't even told anybody, but it was just the most isolating. Like I was so gut-wrenchingly, absolutely embarrassed. And when the time came, I thought I was going to call my sponsor. I couldn't. And I am a big caller of my sponsor. If I have something that happens, I have something going on, I understand it's important for me to connect and speak with my sponsor or speak with somebody that I know and trust in sobriety. This would typically be a moment for me. I do not hesitate to pick up the phone because I don't want to end up drunk. And I did not pick up my phone and call her that day. When it came time to tell her, I eventually told her a few weeks later, honestly. And I was like, it was so bad. Like the way I felt was so bad following it. Like the tantrum wasn't even that significant, you know, like I didn't even break anything. It was just like the pain of it. And that was the only fit or thing that I've had so far in sobriety. But that's not to say more won't come, because this blind rage that I have out of nowhere, like it's occurred. It's unbeknownst to me. I do not understand it. And I don't think someone told me, a very wise woman told me that anger is the hardest emotion. And in sobriety, you might fight this your whole life. You might never get to the bottom of it. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, there's something about anger that is ancient, you know? It's like something none of our generations could get over following up to us. It's archaic. It's like drilled into our stomach at the pit. We can fix all this shit about ourselves. We can rewire our thinking, try so hard. But people with severe anger issues or just in general, it is excruciating and it is ancient to me. Like this is the work of like Lucifer, but like decades ago, you know, like it seems like a curse. That's how anger feels to me. And I think that's why there is so much try to work with it, try to blah, 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 because there isn't an answer. I don't think there is. It's blind rage. And it has impacted my life deeply on a lot of different levels, and more so the looming following effect that I just discussed. I still like can think back to like that day, and I was just literally sick to my stomach. I feel like this will help with other sober people. It made me feel like a fraud in my growth. Like it literally made me feel like a fraud. Like I was like, how can I do better? How can I say I'm doing better? How can I present as doing better? People think I'm doing better, but then I have a fit, you know? Like I felt like a complete fraud in all this growth I had done. And I'm like, damn, so am I tricking myself? Do I think I'm growing and I'm not really actually growing? And it made me feel that way. And you're not a fraud. Anger is confusing, and it is not something that we can control like other stuff. Like I have been able to control so many other emotions that I have, but I just cannot control my anger. And And it's rare, but it's a blowout. Like, you're not winning against me if I'm angry. You're just not, you know? And there's a difference, because I'm not kind of almost talking about day-to-day anger. I've been able to release a lot of that in the point that usually my opponent or the person that I'm rivaled against, I can tell is hurting. Kind of like we talked about last episode. So I think my day-to-day anger doesn't quite exist as much. And it used to bother me, like I said, people being too loud, or like just being in my presence. Like, you're with me too many hours, fucking, you're killing me secretly in my head, but I'm not telling you, you know what I'm talking about. Especially if you have roommates at like 23. First of all, you got to live on your own. Second of all, that kind of feeling where you secretly kind of hate everyone. I don't really experience that. I don't kind of get into those moods anymore. But I do experience blind anger, like I said, blind rage. And I think what it really is too is I was once again facing being out of control. Like, I was once again out of control. After finally getting in control of my life, my anger is now taking me back out of control. That is the thing that is taking me out of control. And it's really hard to be out of control. It's too nostalgic. It's way too nostalgic of a feeling. It's like, for example, I was joking at work. My shift had ended. And I was sitting down just having like my dinner and Diet Coke, hanging out at the bar. And I joked, I said, "Can I have a shot of tequila?" It did not, like, I joke about stuff like that and it's fine, right? It's like a funny joke. It did not feel like a joke. Like, I said it and I laughed and I was like, ew, that was too nostalgic. Like, that was too close. I didn't like the way it felt. It triggered me. It really did. Not like, I don't think I used the right word there. I don't know if I use trigger correctly often ever, if we're being honest, but I didn't like the way it felt. And being out of control has a similar feeling to that. And I think that's why, aside from the embarrassment, why the upset was so deep, because it was I have finally been able to be in control, which is something we don't experience as addicts and alcoholics. We don't experience being in control. And when you finally get a taste of what it is like, it's like normalcy. It's like the closest we get to normalcy. And having that stripped away from you again is too nostalgic. It's like triggering. And I think anger leads a lot of people to relapse, unfortunately, because of that. I don't know. There's just something about it. At least to me, it's just too close to being drunk. Anger is too close to being drunk. That is kind of my history of anger. Throwing hairbrushes, breaking things. That is the most recent bout I had. I wanted to be honest because I want to help you and I want you to know you're not alone in very real things like that. But I have learned it's not like everything else where I can tell you to get over this feeling, you should do this and that and the other, or you could, right? Advice that, or things that I used, now I can't use on anger. Anger cannot be tricked. It cannot be fooled. It is archaic. It is ancient. It does not care about your little gimmicks and your little tools you use to calm your grown ass down, right? It doesn't give a fuck that you know how to calm your anxiety at all. And the only thing, and honestly too, anger is the least talked about emotion. We don't talk about it. And I said earlier why I think we don't, but we don't, because it's impossible. It's like a riddle. Like, it's literally impossible. And I can't really give you any tools that I've kind of utilized, but what I have noticed is that if I'm starting to get angry, and this has worked on like a few occasions where it happens to me very quickly. Like, it's that certain thing dropping, right? It's like dropping that certain anger, dropping that certain whatever, just boom, different state of mind, that last final straw. So what I have tried to do is recognize myself, because I'm mostly in a happy state, that when I'm starting to slip a little bit, and like throughout my day, if this kind of is occurring and I'm starting to get angry and angrier at something being misplaced, something falling, whatever, I need to take a beat. Like, and that has looked like a nap. Like, there was one day I can really only use one example for this because anger sucks. And I mean, it hasn't striked necessarily that much, but there was one day where I was experiencing a lot of that. And I was frustrated about another situation of my day. And then several things that kind of started to happen. And I was just like, I just kind of don't it's like the calm before the storm. You know, I was like, I don't know. I drank my ass a bedtime tea and went the fuck to sleep at like 2:00 in the afternoon and was out for like hours because I was like, I don't want to experience that again. And so all I can do is try to recognize signs from myself, signs from her, right? The subconscious we kind of talked about, and to really tune in to those little things that piss me the fuck off, things that really grind my gears. And to put myself in a safe environment or try to restart my day like we talked about, that's like one of the best tidbits of advice I have because it's so hard. So that, and then being there for yourself. Not going to beat the dead horse once again, but being there for yourself in the after effects. And if I could go back to my instance, I wish that I would have called somebody immediately and have them kind of say to me, even though I'm saying it to myself, them say to me, this is normal. You know, we experience this. You're okay. I've experienced this, whatever. And I wish I was there for myself after the fact. Because it did put me in a dark place for several days following, you know, and I wish that I couldn't be there for myself. Not the way I had before. I had kind of like abandoned self in those few days because it wasn't the same as sadness. It wasn't the same as being there for a friend. And it's kind of like, you know, when a motherfucker cheats, they don't deserve to have someone, you know, like when people cheat and they're like, I cheated, like it's such a pain. You know, so it's kind of like you just don't feel like you should be there for the person, obviously. Kind of a weird analogy to use, but that's kind of what it felt like to me. Another thing, which we are not a religious podcast. Once again, we do not discuss that stuff. But for me, there are a few things that I know at the pit of my core I can't control and like are detrimental and could be detrimental to my sobriety and to my entire life. And I bring these facts to the surface and I do ask my higher power for help with them. So obviously if you don't have a higher power, you're not on that path. You can skip through this. It'll probably only be about a minute, but I ask for my desire to drink to be taken away every day. And I ask for my anger and for my lying to be taken away every day. Because there are things that are really, really deep rooted that I simply need help with. And I think there are so many human things that we can overcome on our own and we can figure out. But something as archaic as anger is not one of those things. And so I will say that I ask for help constantly with that. And like I said, we can't just wish upon a star though. We don't get to do that shit. You know, if you have an outburst, you've got some days of journaling ahead of you. You've got some serious self-reflection to deal with. We are action-based people. This life is action-based. Like I said, I don't think we have plans because if I would have kept drinking, kept using, I wouldn't be sitting here today, you know? And I got to decide that. I could decide if I wanted to go drink right now. How would that be part of a plan? You know what I'm saying? So that's why I think it's important to be super action-based, but there are times where we call upon the stars and we say, we need help with this. Like whatever you believe, like there are certain things that are just that difficult. And I consider anger to be one of those things. So that is a tidbit of information or like a little tidbit of advice that I might not typically reveal to you guys because I encourage you to have your own journey, to find your own higher power or whatever you think, you know, I want you to do that on your own. If you do have a relationship with a higher power or you do call upon some like extraterrestrial strength in some way, I recommend you do it towards your anger. I can hear myself now with all the practice I've done. I can hear the future Maddee, right? So like if I'm in a circumstance, if I'm in a situation and I typically used to react poorly to that or whatever, I can hear future Maddee in a way, right? Saying, don't like pausing before I speak, right? The big pause before I speak, the big pause before I react. It took a lot of work, but I can hear Maddee now in a lot of moments like that. I can hear my higher self kind of saying, hey, take a beat. You know, you're going to not be able to sleep tonight if you react that way or whatever. And I can control it a lot more now than I used to. But in anger, I cannot hear self. I cannot. There is no future Maddee in those moments. Even that day, I literally, so fucked up, but I literally was thinking to myself, that's bullshit. Like myself came in a little bit. I'm like, this is bad. Sober people don't throw stuff. Like we're not supposed to do this. Like this is not part of it. And I literally was like, fuck that. Fuck sobriety. Fuck all this shit. It doesn't even fucking work anyways. I wasn't sure if I was going to say how bad the outburst had gotten, but it was more like literally like that. I could not hear self. I could not see self. It escapes me in anger. And obviously sobriety works. Obviously this is working. Obviously everything I do is good. It's just in that moment I had an outburst, and it didn't have to do with the thing that broke that day. It had to do with the pain and the hardships that have come with sobriety and the unfairness that I deal with, that we all deal with in sobriety, and the why me's of the world. That's what I was angry at in reality. And it came out, and I could see, thank God Maddie spoke up, and I could see why she was truly angry at the core versus something broke and now you're upset, because obviously that's not what caused it. Like when I'm sad, it's so easy for me to see tomorrow in it. Like it's so easy for me to see that it gets better or whatever. And that's not a possibility with anger, unfortunately. And I think like if we could break free from anger, it would be winning our biggest battle. Like this generational monster of anger. If we could overcome that individually, like imagine the power I would hold if I could really get to the point. And I feel like I'm definitely going to try with that. But we have to be willing to fight and understand that with anger, it is almost all losses. And I feel like there are very few things in life where it is constant all loss. Not a lot of headway is being made, right? It's just battle after battle, loss after loss after loss. And there are few things, like anger being one of them, that we have to accept that we are losers. We are defeated when it comes to anger time and time again. And I think we have to be willing to fight. And honestly, like when my next outburst approach or whatever, I hope that I can at least see self a bit, it's kind of like even just a little bit, but I still have the outburst, it's like, that's the kind of headway that anger we have to make. Very, very small feats. Some emotions are bigger feats than others. But I think it's just a willingness to work with self and a willingness to lose time and time again, which sucks. Losing sucks. Imagine how bold you have to be to break down the third wall or fourth wall or whatever to see self in that, and maybe it's like something with higher self, something with like seeing the bigger picture of things. But like I imagine breaking down that wall to where I could hear Maddie, like that's what I want, and breaking down that fourth wall to see that anger is just an emotion. Like it's just me going through human shit, and I don't know what that looks like for me, but I am just happy now that I understand the back half and that I can't abandon self so deeply during that time, and that it is going to be okay, and that I'm just like everybody else. There's so many people out there who face that way worse than I do, and that it's normal occurrence, and that it's part of being a human. Because I really don't like Maddie, as I don't like angry Maddie at all, and that's not cool to me. Like I have to accept her, Why me? Well, I'm talking about how I want to break a cycle right now, a really deep cycle of anger that is deep-rooted in our history for millennia. Like that. Why me? Why do I get to try to break that wall? Like that's cool as fuck to me. It's getting loopy. It's hitting an hour. I always start to get loopy towards the second half of these podcasts, I feel like. But do you guys like my hair? That's the why me that I like. Why me? Why do I get to break these bonds in myself? And why do I get to see myself so deeply when other people don't have this? Why do I get to care? And the level of peace that brings to a human is a lot more beneficial than normal people, in a way, if you're blessed enough to get through the sobriety shit, right? And if you're blessed enough to be strong-headed and firm and disciplined, the bounds and leaps that you grow are really a blessing. And I think that's cool as fuck. Like I wouldn't want to live this life any other way. I used to wish that I was normal, and I don't really wish that anymore. Like I understand that for some reason I have gone through this, and for some reason I experienced this. I don't know why yet, and maybe there is no answer as to why. And maybe it's just me being optimistic. Maybe again, it's the half glass full, but I feel like it's a good way to look at it, because I couldn't imagine living in such a self-deprecating and disgusting state like I was in for the rest of my life. Oh my God. Like to continue that on into adulthood, like And sometimes I get mad at myself and I feel like you're 25 and all you care about is not being angry and being happy. Like, it's just like, but I just kind of am moving into adulthood at 25, which for most people are kind of getting settled into almost adulthood for the lucky ones. I'm just getting into it, and we are, as sober people, are just getting into our life. That doesn't mean we're any different. It doesn't take away from us, but we have to remember that age is just a number sometimes, and that we have to work with our brain. And I hate that anger has enough magnitude to get us to drink. Like, honestly, the blindness of it, I could see, like, that's a warning sign to me. Anger really scares me because I could see how I could have drank after that just because of the despair of the situation. And I don't like that. And anger it can cause us to drink. It can drive some really detrimental things in our life. And I want to remind you of that. And now, like, I think what really helps me too is I have to be light. I have to be light on my feet. I have to be gentle, and I have to be soft. I am already crazy as fuck, and like, I'm a retiree now. I've experienced all the craziness of life, right? But I am fun. I am like a lot of sober people. We are fun. We love fun, right? We're like little adrenaline junkies. We love fun. We love living life. But I can still have fun, right? I can still do what I want to do, but I have to do it in a way that makes sense. And my environment has to be calm and simple and just peaceful. It has to be, because it keeps me from anger, and it keeps me consciously understanding that there is better and that life is just peaceful. So I don't know. For me as a sober person, I have to be gentle. I don't get a say in that. If I'm not feeling gentle, I better go take the time to feel gentle, because I don't want to see what the day is like, and I don't want to have an explosion. I don't want to erupt, in my life, and who I choose as my partner at some point, and the people I choose to be around me, they have to be safe for me, and they have to be gentle and calm, and like understand that quiet to me is, you being loud all the time could just cost me a lot emotionally. And it is important that I stay on 10 again, because we have to understand the reason that we're so mentally on 10 is because we can drink if we're not. I know I can. That is the shit that causes me to drink. And that's why I have to be so vigilant about it. I wish I could say it's just I could wish I could be better, but it's because I don't ever want to live that life again. And I have a lot of weird quirks, a lot of weird fucked up shit, and I have to get to the root of it. I don't want to end up drunk, or worse, a dry drunk, honestly. Like, and I know I'm capable of both relapse and being a dry drunk, and we can't ever be naive enough to think something as little as a blow up couldn't cause us to drink. It's such little things, and it's so weird. Like, it's like you could just put that drink in you and you're drunk. And like, it's so dangerous that, like, you know what I mean? Like, free will being your disaster and something that you could perform being your own downfall is seriously dangerous, because we're like so obsessed and we're so easily like persuaded, I feel like. So it's like so dangerous to me, the concept in general that we decide our own fate. And there's something so beautiful about that in sobriety, because it teaches us who we are, and you hold the power, and that shit is crazy. Like, dead ass, like, we hold it, period. We hold the power, or we drunk, or we're going to drink, and it is, I feel like it's almost like it's set up in a certain way. It's not, but it all comes down to like our personal power, and that it is something that small, because it's not a big thing when your sobriety blows up, it's grabbing something and putting it into your system. So it can be that small, and all it could take is the perfect thing in your brain clicking together to run back. And those are just warning signs for me. So that's just why I take it so seriously, and I hope you do too. We have to like prioritize meditation, and we have to prioritize being conscious contact to contact, which seems exhausting and it seems too much. But in the beginning, I would have days where the day was there to bring me challenges, to allow me to practice contact to contact with person every single day, and to practice being in my own head, getting lost in my own head, and to practice bringing myself back to a state of pause. We're here right now. And it's constant. It's like a constant thing to learn. And I still do it all the time. We have to, but that's where we find our power, is in the pause, is in those moments. That's where we hold power. And that can change the outcome of your day, that can change the outcome of an entire situation, is just that measly second of hearing self and pausing. And that, I think, fully comes through practicing, like I said at the beginning, like literally my day, I would set it up like normal, but I would say, okay, every contact that I make today is like I have to be conscious, like I have to make sure that I'm doing myself properly and that I'm not going to walk away scathed. And by scathed, I mean, for me, I leave scathed if I hurt somebody, and I think most people do. So scathed isn't losing. Scathed is hurting the other person a lot of the times. At least for myself, that's what I found, that it wasn't about me winning, because I lost irregardless. And I think everyone's different person to person, but for me, that's how it looks, is I'm hurt more by hurting the person. Either way, I lose in this situation. Just like anger. Like either way, I'm losing. So meditate. I won't tell you again. I will tell you again, actually. Meditate, motherfucker. And it's like really fun to train yourself to do that stuff. I know it seems like tiring and like fucking exhausting, but it gave me purpose. And as a purpose-driven person, it gives me a reason throughout my day, like it gives me something to do almost, in a way, like where I'm being productive the full day because I'm very conscious and I'm trying to remember I'm here. And I think drilling that into yourself in early sobriety is important. Drilling that you're here right now and consciously being here is really important. I know it is for me because I live in la la land, and it's so easy for me to not be in the moment, sober or not. It's so easy for me not to, because I'd rather be in la la land half the time, if we're being honest. Like the way that I daydream, I do not live in reality, and I'm fine with that. I love that I don't live in reality, but it makes it a little harder for me to be conscious at times, and I have to remember that. Yeah, it's all about your personal recipe. It's all about what you need and how you recognize what's wrong with you, honestly, and how to move forward from that. We all have our own recipe. We're all different. So I really want you to tune into self again. So yeah, this week, just want to talk about anger, get that out of the way. This might be super embarrassing for me to post, so please be gentle with me when you're watching this, because it's pretty revealing and not easy to talk about, but I wish somebody had told me how normal it was to be angry, and that I'm not a fraud in my growth. I'm not a fraud in my sobriety. If I get angry, it's archaic and it's hard to crack. So I hope we crack the code, you guys, and I love you. I hope you have a great week. Bye.